Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News, an Indian perspective on All India Radio. This is Nishit Kumar bringing glimpses of major developments of the day from across the globe. The headlines. New Delhi and Beijing reach enhanced understanding of each other's position on LAC in Ladakh. India and US discuss ways to strengthen cooperation at United Nations. WHO lauds India's COVID tracking app Arogya Setu, says the pandemic can be overcome quickly if countries use the right tools. Chinese patrol ships intrude into Japan's territorial waters of the Senkaku Islands in East China Sea. Protests erupt in Pakistan against government's attempt to alter status of Gilgit-Baltistan, and Germany says Turkey should refrain from provocation in eastern Mediterranean. India and China have said that the seventh round of talks on the border situation in Ladakh were positive, constructive, and had enhanced understanding of each other's position. Senior commanders of India and China held the discussions on the Indian side of LAC at Chushul in Ladakh on Monday. A joint press release said the two sides had a sincere, in-depth and constructive exchange of views on disengagement along the line of actual control in the western sector of the India-China border areas. Both sides agreed to maintain dialogue and communication through military and diplomatic channels and arrive at a mutually acceptable solution for disengagement as early as possible. Both sides agreed to earnestly implement the important understandings reached by the leaders of the two countries, not to turn differences into disputes and jointly safeguard peace and tranquility in the border areas. India and US discussed ways to strengthen cooperation at the UN, especially during India's membership of the UNSC for the period 2021-22. Foreign Secretary of India Harsh Vardhan Shringla on Tuesday held bilateral consultations over a diverse range of issues with the visiting US Deputy Secretary of State Stephen Biegun in New Delhi. The convergences and shared interests between India and US came to the fire at the talks. Both sides reiterated their commitment to the comprehensive global strategic partnership. Mr. Shringla and Mr. Biegun also reviewed status and progress of the diverse and growing bilateral relationship. Foreign Secretary Harsh Vardhan Shringla and US Deputy Secretary of State Stephen Biegun took part in the opening session of the 4th India-US Forum yesterday. Mr. Biegun is on a 3-day visit to India from Monday. India has said that increased dependence on digital technologies has created both pressures and opportunities for creating policy solution. Regional collaborations are required to foster a secure, resilient and equitable cyberspace. External Affairs Ministry Representative Vijay Thakur Singh has made this statement at the second ASEAN-India Track 1.5 dialogue on cyber issues held virtually on Monday. Mr. Singh emphasized that the core values of liberty, freedom of expression and rule of law apply to cyberspace as well. The focus was on cooperation and security in the digital and cyber domain in the wake of coronavirus pandemic. WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus hailed India's COVID-19 tracking app Arogya Setu for its role in helping the authorities to identify cluster areas and expand testing in a targeted way. Mr. Ghebreyesus said that the pandemic can be overcome quickly if countries use the right tools.
Digital technologies are helping to make these tried and tested public health tools even more effective, such as mobile applications to support contact tracing efforts. The Arogya setup from India has been downloaded by 150 million users and has helped city public health departments to identify areas where clusters could be anticipated and expand testing in a targeted way.
World Health Organization has warned against the idea that herd immunity might be a realistic strategy to stop the COVID-19 pandemic. WHO chief said that such proposals are scientifically and ethically problematic. He said health officials typically aim to achieve herd immunity by vaccination. WHO chief added that herd immunity is achieved by protecting people from a virus and not by exposing them to it. Now let's take a look at the coronavirus updates. According to WHO data, the number of infected cases has crossed 37.60 million worldwide. European Union countries on Tuesday approved a series of guidelines aimed at facilitating free movement across the bloc and avoiding further disruption during the coronavirus pandemic. India is witnessing a gradual trend of declining average daily COVID cases over the past 5 weeks. The number of recoveries in the country continues its upward streak and is around 7.5 times the number of active cases. In U.S. presidential elections, President Donald Trump returned to the campaign trail on Monday for the first time since he announced his COVID-19 diagnosis. Trump's rally came hours after the White House said he had tested negative for COVID-19 on consecutive days and was not infectious to others. Meanwhile, Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden made 2 campaign appearances in Ohio. He criticized Trump for playing down the coronavirus threat and mocked the president's statements that he did not want to panic Americans. This is All India Radio giving you the world news. The Japan Coast Guard has reported that 2 Chinese patrol ships have been in Japan's territorial waters for 2 days. This is the longest intrusion into the waters in 8 years. Japan said the 2 vessels entered the waters of the Senkaku Islands in the East China Sea on Sunday and tried to approach a Japanese fishing boat. Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Katsunobu Kato said on Tuesday, termed the Chinese intrusion extremely regrettable. He demanded that the Chinese ships should immediately move out of Japanese waters. People from Gilgit-Baltistan held demonstrations across the region and in major towns of Pakistan against Islamabad's clampdown on people's civil and political rights. The protesters demanded the immediate release of the rights activists who have been allegedly sentenced on fabricated charges. They said that they will sacrifice themselves but will not let Pakistan alter the status of the region. People from Gilgit-Baltistan who have been living in other Pakistani towns have also taken to streets against Islamabad's arbitrary decision. The protesters accuse Pakistan of systematically exploiting the region of its resources and sharing no dividends with them. German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas said on Tuesday that Turkey should refrain from provocation in a gas dispute in the eastern Mediterranean. He added that Germany stood in solidarity with Cyprus and Greece. German Foreign Minister has appealed to Turkey to remain open for talks. He said Turkey should not resume gas exploration in more controversial sea areas. A Turkish ship set sail on Monday to carry out seismic surveys in the eastern Mediterranean. It prompted Greece to issue a furious new demand for European Union sanctions on Ankara in a row over offshore exploration rights. Lebanon and Israel will launch boundary talks on Wednesday. The move is aimed at resolving the long-running dispute over its maritime border running through potentially gas-rich Mediterranean waters. The meeting will be hosted by the United Nations Peacekeeping Force UNIFIL. The UN agency has monitored the disputed land boundary since Israel's military withdrawal from South Lebanon in 2000, ending a 22-year occupation. Malaysian opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim met the nation's king on Tuesday in a bid to form a new government. Mr. Anwar claimed that he had secured a majority in the parliament. Mr. Anwar said that he would present the king with strong and convincing documentary evidence of the support from lawmakers, which would allow him to unseat Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin. Muhyiddin came to power in March after securing a majority with the support of opposition parties after resignation of his predecessor Mahathir Mohamad. Moving on to sports, Portuguese soccer star Cristiano Ronaldo tested positive for coronavirus. He was doing well and had no symptoms. Ronaldo was dropped from the country's Nation League match against Sweden on Wednesday. In badminton, Indian shuttler Lakshya Sen on Tuesday progressed to the second round of the ongoing Denmark Open as badminton resumed after a 7-month-long pause. In the Indian Premier League cricket, Chennai Super Kings sets a target of 167 runs for 6 wickets in their stipulated 20 overs. In its reply, Sunrisers Hyderabad has scored 64 for 3 wickets in 11 overs as per the latest updates. Nearly 40 people have died in Vietnam and Cambodia and many are missing, including rescuers, due to prolonged heavy rain and flash flooding as tropical storm Nangka edged towards the Vietnamese coast on Tuesday. India is celebrating the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to Vaishnavajan by artists from Romania. And with that, we end this bulletin. See you at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.